Now that the U.S. Senate passed the $700 billion defense policy, it heads for a swift approval by President Trump. However, the entire proposed defense spending may not come through due to a 2011 Budget Control Act that placed spending caps on defense to $549 billion. Still, this year's National Defense Authorization Act authorizes $634 billion in base defense spending alone. That includes the purchase of new weapons and pay raises for service members across the board. The bill also bans the transfer of Guantanamo Bay detainees to the United States and authorizes billions of dollars for missile defense to counter threats from North Korea. And Poland has reached a major arms agreement with the United States, totaling an estimated $10.5 billion. The deal, approved Friday by the State Department, will see the sale of 4 Patriot air and missile defense systems to the NATO ally. Lawmakers in Washington will now have 30 days to approve the sale, which will primarily benefit the system's producer, defense contractor Raytheon. For some analysis, I'm joined now by former Pentagon official Michael Maloof. How are you doing, Michael?
Very good, thank you.
This is part of NATO's stated defense against Russia. Commenting on the deal, the Polish defense minister said Russia is, quote, ready for war and that NATO needs to be ready for war too. What has Russia done to provoke this action?
Well, they'll probably point to Ukraine, but and the fact that Russia is capable of amassing 50,000 to 100,000 troops onto the border, but there has been no provocation. There's been no, the only provocation that I'm seeing these days is from the NATO side, in which you have the neocons in the United States constantly pushing for increased defense with NATO to basically give NATO a new lease on life, some reason to exist since the end of the Cold War. And the other thing is that there's a self-perpetuating problem here in which we on the one hand have put in this anti-missile defense system in Europe, supposed to be aimed toward Iranian incoming missiles for Europe, but in fact they can easily be turned into offensive weapons, and they pose a threat to Russia, and as a consequence, it will the escalation begins. The fact that what's happening right now in the United States politically, the anti-Russian tone that's occurring, is actually impeding any efforts by the Trump administration to try and meet openly with the president of Russia and sit down and have a summit to discuss issues. The fact that they met, for example, recently in Asia, but only at a handshake. They should have been able to have discussions and talks on very serious common interest items, and that did not occur. So the neocons are winning in the United States, and our politics here are becoming increasingly jaded, and as a consequence, we're trying to create a new Cold War, which will then give these neocons relevance to exist in Washington.
At the end of the day, Trump did appoint Secretary James Mattis, who, it doesn't really break from the mainstream when it comes to Russia and Ukraine. Do you believe Congress will approve this deal?
Probably, of course. They can't agree on anything. They have to disagree with it, disapprove it. Otherwise, it goes through within 30 days. And they can't work their way out of a paper bag right now, let alone come up with something momentous like disapproving. There's no reason. So but it also does one other thing. It shows that the whole idea of the anti-missile system was ultimately aimed at strengthening against Russia, and this is, we were hoping that when Trump came in that this would change.
About 30 seconds, Michael. This is happening as the Wall Street Journal recently reported the U.S. may begin research and development of a missile banned by the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, stating according to U.S. officials, the U.S. is laying the groundwork to build a type of missile banned by a Cold War-era pact unless Russia abandoned its own pursuit of the weapons. Help us understand what's going on here.
It's to do research and development, which is not barred from the treaty. The treaty doesn't bar research and development. That's the extent that they would go. The authorization would allow for that of a cruise missile. While the Russians claim they have a supersonic cruise missile, the United States feels it's got to do something similar to try and match it. Most of our cruises are just under our subsonic, but the reality is that this only heightens tensions because it's aimed at Russia.
It seems like a common pattern there in the region.
The Cold War hasn't ended.
Seems not. Former Pentagon official Michael Maloof, thanks for your time.
Pleasure.